Hello guys, welcome to another coding session, and in this video I want to work on a Go Gin web framework. If you remember, in our previous video we had a comparison video where we compared like started development on Gin, Bigo and Echo web frameworks. We started some initial project, and in this coding session I want to add more features to the Go Gin web framework. I will give more details in a second, but since this is a coding session, I want to give like little introduction. So coding session means it's a long video, and at some part like can be boring because I will do also some kind of research. So these topics usually also new for myself, and that's why it can be long and a bit boring. That's why if you check description and the first comment or pinned comments to this video, you can find a shorter version or tutorial version, but it can be uploaded a few days after this video. So make sure you enable notification, or you check on Twitter or Instagram or any social media, so you don't miss these shorter versions. But in this long videos you will have all the details. So let's get started. And also I will put time codes in the description and in a first comment, so you can jump between different sections of this video. So let's get started. As I said, goal for this video is to add more features to our previous project. So the source code for the project for this coding session and for other tutorials is under CoderVlogger, so you can jump to this repository, and under Go Web you will find these implementations. So today we will work on this one because I want to add more features to Gin web framework based project. And if you are interested in the previous one, you can check this video. It's in my channel. It's called Go Web Frameworks and set up a simple server, so you can check this one. And for this particular video, I have a plan to implement these endpoints. Actually, I already have a branch in my GitHub repository. We will check it and improve it. But the goal is to explain and finalize features for this endpoint. So basically what I want to have users as an endpoint, and if you provide username, you get this username from database. If you don't provide any like ID, let's say, you will get list of the users. You can post with this JSON structure to create a user, and also you can delete. So it's a RESTful API. And as I said, I already have a branch, so if you go to the Go tutorials, by the time you watch this video, probably I will remove this branch, so you will have it in a master one. But yeah, so as I said, I have some parts implemented, so let's jump to the source code to see what's done and what's not. So basically in this project, I have a main.go file, which is basically like entry point for this project. And in this file, I have a couple of imports. I will back to this import because, as you can see, I use a memory database. I will check it in a second. But shortly, what I have two constants, one for users, and later on I want to also extend this API by having posts as another endpoint for this project. That's why we have these two constants with the endpoint names. We will also use this as a base URL. And then what I do, I initialize a memory database. I will explain it in a second. Then I initialize a Gin, add a like very simple ping endpoint, so we can check is it working or not. And then I start adding like my main features. This part is for users, and next part is for posts. We will rewrite this part because as you can see, there is some like, I think this error is because I have like 3 projects in my ID in my session. I need to open one Go project. It will be fixed, but but part of our refactoring will be moving this this part to the model. So I want to have start having some project structure, so later on we can move towards having proper project structure for our web service. Yeah, that's why it makes sense to extract some parts and move to another files. So let's start. Let's move to the terminal. I am in a project directory, so and I want to open this directory as a root. As you can see now, I have yeah, this one. So as you can see now, I have Go Web, which is root for all web frameworks we have, and I want to open this one so IG will better understand project structure. So let's open this and close another one, so we don't need this one anymore. Yeah, I want to keep this one for some notes during the recording. So let's close this one and attach this one here. I can save it temporarily as a, let's say, as a README. I will remove it later. Yeah, and now we have yeah, now we have the same project and only this project in my file explorer. And if I go to the main, and now I see that it's not error anymore, because it can understand that there is a user somewhere in the project and somewhere is a model, so model.go. So let me explain a bit why I have this memory database. Since we want to return some data from database, and now since we are just starting, I don't want to use any database. I mean, as a MySQL or Postgres or any other database. And there is a very simple database implementation called. So we can basically implement in-memory database using Go language. And there's a lot of ways of doing it. And in this project, I did very simple one, but with one feature, which is you can insert, delete, and search with O1. So you don't need to iterate over all the items in memory to return one single item. So just very simple implementation. You can check this repository for information. It's not required. You can use this in your project as well, but not for production. I mean, for testing. And that's and by having it, we don't need to care about actual database, actual storage. And that's why in my main function, which is entry point for my application right now, I initialize a new database. We will not dive into a lot of details of this database implementation. So shortly, this is kind of our database. So we can save, we can get items, and etc. And after this, as I said, we have this ping. Let's skip it for now. As a first endpoint, what I have this. When I have this R. R because it's usually from routes, but anyway, we can also call it a Gin server or something. And I initialize in this call, in this function, I say that in my server or web server web application, open a new get endpoint with the users as a base URL, and when it's called, call this function. So I provide a function as a parameter and do this. So basically return a JSON status awk and get from database this entry. In database, you can save, in this particular database, you can save different models, and it's like tables. So you can have user table, you can have post tables. In this case, I provide a name of this user group. It's basically users. So we say that give me everything under this table, in this table, which is in-memory table in our case. And actually we can test this part. So if I let's open another terminal, another like session. I will move to the same directory, go tutorials, and it is go web Gin, and let's execute this. So let's run this application. Go run main.co, and I also need to provide a model.co because I have part of the application in this file. We will check this file in a second. And this file, so now I have my web application running, so I can move to the Postman. If you are not familiar with the Postman is like a very useful tool for checking endpoints, testing endpoints, saving. So as you can see, I have all these calls as a tabs, so I can, for example, run this query and then jump to another one and run this one as well. So to see how it works. So now, since it's in memory database, the previous results that I had before recording this video, they are gone. So every time when we will restart this server, we will need to insert the new data. And since I have this post implemented, let's just, for now, for the sake of this testing, let's check. Let's check how it works. So I will explain how it's implemented as a code base. So right now I want to just check how it works. So I have this endpoint. As you can see, when I started my application, it started as a localhost 8080. Yeah, localhost 8080, and URL base for the users it's /users. We can see it from this call. So this is URL base for users. We can call it whatever we want, but for the consistency, for the REST API, implementation of REST API, they need to be under the same URL base. So as you can see, I have also post implementation, which is under /users. We have another function as a parameter. And what we do here, we set a user model, and using functionality provided by Gin framework, we bind incoming JSON to our user model. And if we check this type, we can see that we have this, let's say, annotation. And here we say is that for this type, for this field under this type, if you want to bind instance of this object to the JSON, so username should be under the username in JSON, and first name needs to be written like this. As you can see, we have camel case, if I am not wrong, and now we have like this underscore, and it will be binded, and also last name to the last name. And if you check my my request data, so in a Postman, you can say that I will call this endpoint as a post, and I will provide this body to my post request, and this body is a JSON. So and when you have it, you can like format, not this one, so you can format, let's say, beautify and etc. So it's like a very friendly feature. And what I do, I provide first name as I specify in this one. But if I do like this, it will not work. It will not be able to parse this data, because as a JSON I need to provide in this format, in this exact format. And in this case, what I do, I specify a model, say how it needs to be parsed from JSON. And it works two ways. So later on we will pass this object to the JSON output. And as a result, I can say that whenever there is a post request with this JSON data, you can bind it to my model, because there is like JSON annotation specified for this type. And if there is no error, or if there is error, return a status internal server error. If there is no error, return status created, which will be 201. So in HTTP call, you can return a status code, and it will be let me do it. It will be specified here. So it says that I made a request. Stats was 201, which means created. And you can also see like some additional data, how long it took and etc. It's all provided by Postman, by the way. And yeah, let's go back to the code, and we add it here. So usually with a normal database, I mean with an actual database, you don't put this code here. You probably do something like this. You make actual code. So once you have this data, you make actual code. You make an actual call to add this entry to the database, and if there is no error, you return a result. But in our case, we do a very simple way, because this one will return entry itself. So we can say that return this status code with the actual object that was stored in database. A very simple implementation. Later on, maybe in our next steps, we can improve this and have like better error handling. But for now, it's enough. So let's make this call again. So, let's first check. Did I make a call? No, I didn't. So let's make a call. So this is our data. This result is from my previous call, so don't get confused. So what I will do, I will make a post to this URL with this data, and I expect it to be 201. So let's make this call. Yes, it's 201. And we saw in action how this binding works. So as I said, this is like wrong name for this field. It should be first name. And as a result, we have this first name empty. And when I will request this data back, I can see this empty. Let's try to make another call. So there is a I don't want to say problem. So now how it works, when you make a same call with the same data as a post call, so this is post call, it will update existing object in a database by this username. Since we have the same username, what it did, since it's a memory database, it requests this object by this key, which is in our case a username. And if there is already an instance of this object, it will override this instance. It's not the best way for REST API, because we kind of updated existing object. But as I said, since we don't have like actual database, let's fix this also in the next steps. For now, what I want to show you, I want to show how you can implement like simple API calls. So let's continue. Let's insert another object. So let's say username2, send this data. It says 201, and let's try to fetch this data. This is the result of this get request to the user's endpoint. We can see that we can put some data in database and return get this data back. But there is also two other calls. First is get request, and get request will work in a way how we did update. So basically, for get request to work, you provide a username as an ID, and if there is an instance or an entry with this username in database, you will get it back. It works very simple. So in this case, we use a parameter, which is this one. So this is our parameter. This is our full URL. This is our user's endpoint, and this is our parameter. Right now we have user 1 and user 2. Let's say user 3. We shouldn't get any response, and actually we should get error code. So for 404, because there is no instance with this ID. So let's add this to our notes. So what we should do in this session, fix add 404 for username get request. So we will add it in a second. So let's for now check how it works for existing one. It works. We get username 1, we get username 2, and we see it's a different. And as I said, since it's an in-memory database, if I stop and run this again, I shouldn't get any response. Yeah, because memory for this application for previous run is gone, so we don't have this data anymore. But since we use Postman, we can just insert this data. It's user 2. Let's insert also user 1. Make a call. Let's see, we have all this data. Now order is different because I inserted user 2 first, and now we can get this data again. Yeah, let's move it back to our source code. So we have this get request also working. Everything is okay. And we also have delete. Let's check also how this delete works, and then start adding some more features, changing some code. So delete is quite simple. It is like in terms of URL, full URL, you have the same structure. You provide endpoint address, and then you provide a parameter, which is in our case a ID for the instance we want to delete. In a source, in terms of syntax is the same. So in your routes, you call delete function. Since it's yeah, we can also go and see how it's implemented. It's open source, of course, and we provide a function. Yeah, on this one we are looking at delete. So we provide a function. Yeah, and in this function we get a username from parameters. We delete this item in database, now in memory database, and return a JSON saying status is okay and with empty response. Let's try it out. So what I will do, I will go to the Postman again. I already have this tab here. This is my URL. This is a method, so you can specify a method that you want to call. In our case, it's a user, it's a delete. So let's call delete. We got 200, and if I call this again, we shouldn't have username 2. It works. But if I try to do it again, I still get 200. We should fix this one as well. So let's add some node and delete request. Yeah. Let's save. So now we are good with our endpoints. What I want to do now, I want to what we can do. As I said, I want to extract some source code and make it more like so we shouldn't have like a lot of code in the main. That's the usual case for Go application. Your main function should be as small, as simple as possible. First item that I want to do, I want to extract these users into the another file. So right now you have main.go and model.go. In model I have my main models. So what we can do, let's add a file called users.go. So in terms of structure, in a Go, you can structure your application in multiple ways, and one of them is like based on your features. So since we have users, and at this stage it's very simple, so we can put everything related to the users in one file. Another way would be like splitting by functionality. For example, I think for now we can go this way. We can do like roads and add everything related to the registration of these roads in one file. And later on, when we have like a bigger application with users, and in our case we have also sample post endpoints, what we can do, we can have packages. As a first step, we can have packages called users and posts, and each of them can contain user roads and user models, and post roads and post models. But for now, let's keep it simple. So what we will have our roads. I will move it to the right side. Let's a bit zoom. Yeah. and let's see what I need for moving this out. So basically, since I have also posts, I think I can just remove all this part out, and at the end I will have only rows. And for now, okay. So let's start. So let's just move this part. We will need to do some refactoring because we need to also pass a database. Let's remove this part, move it here, and let's have a function called new roads. For now we don't return anything, but basically what we need to do, so let's define our interface. So we should have database here. Our roads shouldn't like initialize this database. Ideally our roads shouldn't know about database implementation at all, but this is out of scope of this coding session. We will check this in another video. But for now what we can do, we have this in-memory database, and let's say we have also roads, which should be like this. So since we are on a same folder structure, on a root, like we added this roads on a root of our project. So what we can do, we can keep it here. It means that we don't have any additional namespace, so it will be just like new roads. And as you can see, we have run. So basically, we should also like embed this run in our code. So what we want to have, we want to have this initialization, and at the end we should say like something like this, run. Maybe this is not ideal. Maybe this initialization can be also part of this new roads. Let me see this. Yeah, I think this will be very simplified implementation. Basically, we will need to run, put everything in these roads. But I'm thinking more about like how we can like later on improve it even more. So we can basically we can define our custom type. Let's say roads, which is struct. So since it's not capital, which means it's a private type, and this will. Yeah, I'm now thinking. So the problem is that I have like two goals here. Refactor a little bit, so it's not like very simple, and later on we can extend it, and also don't like over-engineer at this point. That's why ideally what you would do, you get these roads from outside, and you just add your, for example, it's user, you add user-related roads. If it's post, you add post-related roads. But in this case, we have everything in one place, for now at least. Let's think how we can do this part. So we can, yeah, I think for now, let's go with this one. Let's move it there. So let's start with this one. It's very simplified, and we don't need this one also. The only thing that we need is a database instance. So we call it MDB. Let's keep the same name, MDB, which will be memdb new, just memdb, and type for this memdb. Oh, okay. Why if we don't have this here? Yeah, I want to check what this memdb new memdb returns. Ah, yeah, now I can. So this is a pointer. So it will be memdb. Okay, so we need to add also imports. So let's close this one. We need these imports. So it will be the same import, and of course a package name. So in this one we don't need this part anymore. So we can keep these constants here for now, I mean, technically we can keep, because this is the same package, it shouldn't be a problem, but for the sake of this refactoring, let's also move this one here and keep our main goal very simple. So what I will do, I will initialize the database and provide MDB. So for now, this is like this simple. So yeah, new roads. So this should work. So let's see, everything seems to be okay now. At least we can start. We need to provide. So for now, I will just put exported. It's a workaround to disable these errors, and this constants also should have this is exported for now. So usually I need to put let's show some good example. Let's have normal comments or Go documentation. User groups defines a group name for user objects. User in memory, let's say objects. First group. Group. User. Yeah. Okay. And now I think we are okay. Now we can try to run this. New roads undefined. Why? This is a new roads, right? Yeah. I need to save, I guess. Try again. Oh, yeah. And of course, I need to provide roads.go. Yeah. Now at least it works. We can execute it as it was previously. But this is also not like a best way, or like we just moved some piece of code from one place to another place. But this at least provides us like some like better files. Like we don't have like everything in one file. We have like a split. But what I don't like, we have direct dependence on database. We need to refactor this. So basically, we need to use interface. Yeah. So instead of providing database, actual database, we need to provide an interface. We can do it in this video, I guess. It will be quite some improvement for this source code. And also, so I also don't like that we define these roads and run them, but I guess this is like part of the another refactoring, but let's see. So for now, what we can do, we can remove this dependency, and I will try to explain it shortly. So basically, there is a article Go language struct interface. So I think it was accept interface and return structs. Let me think. I think this is like it's good to know about this and read to go through this. I'm not sure does this exactly apply to our structure, but what I'm trying to do, I think, yeah. So this is like the case that I want to do. Since I don't want to keep dependency in terms of our roads, they shouldn't be aware of which database we use, or because we can start with in-memory database and later on we can refactor it to the MySQL, for example. But this shouldn't like require change in roles. Our endpoints can accept an interface with the required methods, and when we change implementation of this interface from one which is in memory to the MySQL, we don't have to change or refactor this function, this place. And the way how we can do it, let's for now define our interface here. So let me think. So for this MDB, list of the methods that we need is list group entries, add group entry, get group entry, and we have also another one which is add entry for posts. Yeah, let's keep this add entry. get group entry. I think this part needs to be a bit refactored. So for now, let's keep this out because I see inconsistency in a method calls. So for now, let's keep it out for now. And let's try to first fix users. So what I will do, I will define a type which will be database interface, and what we need, let's start with the first one, list group entries, and that's exactly what we need. So in our case, in this particular case, we will have still dependency on this type. The only way for now to avoid this dependency will be using like database level types that will be like, let's say, our domain models. But since we don't have, so we have our domain models, I think, let's try. So let's try to put user. But the thing is, our actual implementation, it returns, I'm trying to think. So our actual implementation, it returns entry, which is already an interface, and our user model implements this interface. So entry, which is internal implementation of our database, memory database, this is an interface with one required method, which is key, and it should return string. And in our user type, we implement this because that's the only way how we can add this object in database and retrieve it. That's why let's see what happens if we do this. So basically, instead of exact match, I think it will fail, but let me try. So this will be database. Okay, for now it's okay. So let's add this one as well. Yeah, add group entry. So in this one we will also replace entry with a user and user. So we basically replace interface with the actual type. Yeah, let's use, and add group entry, get entry, get group. I think this should be get group entry in our case. The same way, get group entry, user. Yeah, you see I have inconsistency in a naming, but it doesn't make like. For now it's okay. Get group entry. Okay, we already failed at the group entry. Cannot use user value of type user as a user value in argument. Blah blah blah. Yeah, okay. I can fix it easily. And the last one was delete. Okay, delete group entry. Yeah, delete group user. So let's also add this one. Let's add also code documentation database defines a contract for database implementation. Let's code for now this. So what we did now, let me first check is everything okay. So at least I don't see any ID based errors except this one. It says that I cannot, yeah, okay. Cannot use MDB as database in argument, wrong type for method. Okay, so it doesn't accept because yeah, as I said, our types, it doesn't it's not like exact types that our database needs. And since our database, like for our project, is external dependency, we cannot use I mean change this think the only way for now it will be keeping this entry. I will explain how we should do in a project when we have control over the types that you send to the database and retrieve from database. But for now, let's see the whole working part and then try to like improve it. So what's the problem now? Cannot use MDB variable of type MDB as a database value in an argument. Wrong type for add group entry. Add group entry. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Okay. So now we can use it. Let me run the project. Yeah, project runs. Let me try to save, add, and return. Which it looks like it works. And now let's think about it. What we did. So basically, one improvement that we added. This is about we removed direct dependency from MDB, which was like MDB, which is like internal type, like concrete implementation of a database. That's one improvement, but one disadvantage of this approach that we have right now is we still have dependency on this entry. Because this entry belongs to the internal implementation of this memory database, and let's just assume that we switch this memDB to the, let's say, MySQL DB, just to imagine for a second. So it's something like this, new MySQL DB, blah blah blah, and we should be able to provide this as well. And of course, this type here, it should implement our interface. And now we can see clearly the problem. If this type will implement our interface, it also should use our domain model. And that's the problem actually we have here. Since we cannot change it now, because this domain model, so we have this domain model, but this domain model is not used by our in-memory database. I suggest we skip this part for the next features. We probably can make, and this is not like details of Gin, right? It's like our storage model. We spent a lot of time on the storage model, but it's okay. I think it's for coding session. It's more than okay. We saw actual problem in action, but later on we will need to fix it. But now let's for a second try to add another endpoint, which was post. We just commented this part so it will not be so it works to make it work. And now we can try to add another endpoint. So let me put some notes. We should also fix this one. So what we did, run and see how it works. Refactor and extract routes. It's just I'm adding some notes for about what we did in this video and what we will continue doing. So extract routes to separate file and refactor storage, and now we will do add /post endpoint, and then we will fix this one. Okay, so now we are adding /post endpoint. So we already have this one. So let's start one by one. So for this one, we need list entries, but this list entries, it works with, so basically this in-memory database, it supports listing everything in all. So you can add a new entry, a new object in database without any group, and this list entries will return all the groups, all the objects without a group. But we don't need this implementation right now. That's why I will just use this one, but with posts group. Yeah, and this should return me only posts without users. And let's also make post part work so we can test it. So in this case, we will add a group entry. All these methods, they are internal implementation of the memory database. We shouldn't have this kind of dependency. It's okay for coding session. I will cut these parts from actual tutorial, so make sure to check the actual tutorial for only gene part. But okay, for now let's continue. So what I will do, I will add post and posts group. Okay, I think that's okay for post endpoint and adding post. So what we can do now, we can check how it works. So let's should restart. So call to post, we don't have anything. Let's create one post. The way how we do it is the same. We have our endpoint / posts, which we define here. This is our endpoint, and we have post, and we provide the data, and data structure defined here. So this is our post type. So we have very simple model, slug, which is like unique key for post, author, title, and content, and also JSON definition, which is, as I already explained, it's very important to have, and also key method implementation for our in-memory database. Yeah, and now we can try to save. So let's do it post one, and we can also specify author. For now, it's just a string. There is no relation between this author and the actual user model. It's just a string. Let's see how it works. So if you believe this result, it's a 201, which means it's created. We have same object returned, and we can see like all fields are correct. And now we can go to the post and get this data. We can try to add another post. Post 2, make a call, command enter, executes from the keyboard. So you can basically, instead of clicking here, you can just click command enter, command enter. And now we can go back. I did twice, but since we rely on this ID, on this key, it will not add another one. So it works. Now let's go back and also implement delete and get. So let's start with a get, comment this part. So what we do, we add a new endpoint / posts. This time it's another parameter name, slug. We get this parameter and request it from database. Here we also need to check if there is an object by this request. If there is no object, we should return 404. We will fix it in a second. And yeah, and also delete. So let's do it once. So the same structure here, only difference is we delete and return empty result. Let's restart. All our data will be gone. Maybe we should implement bulk insert later on, so we can just like insert multiple posts. But let's try to finish this part. So we added one post with post ID post 2, and we can try to call delete. So I will copy paste. So this will be, yeah, we can first start with a get. So it will be post 2 in our case. Let's see, yeah, and let's make another one which will be delete on the same URL, post 2, and let's see, it says it's okay. Yeah, so and when I request a list of the posts, I see it's gone. So this part is also done. And what we can do now, we can try to implement this 404. So let's start with a user. Our goal is to implement if there is no username, user with a given username, we return 404 instead of returning every time okay. So how we can do it? We can move this part out of this scope. We say return a user. So by the interface we defined, it says get group entry, which is also incorrect because we should say in our database we can like split user database, post database as a like a further refactoring, and also make this method names specific to the service, to the domain, let's say. So they can be list user entries, add user entry, and etc. But for now we skip this part. So we get the entry. We say if entry is nil, what we do, we say JSON and HTTP not found, and I believe there is a better way. We can check in documentation, because it's basically returning empty result with a status code not found. But okay, for now let's not focus on this one. And if there is a data, we just return this data. Yeah, and let's restart our server, start it again. So we did it for user. Let's start checking a username. We add a new user. First we list, we say it exists, we try to we get it, and we try to make user 2. We don't get it, and now we see we'll get a 404 not found. So this is the logic that we just implemented, and we can do the same for delete. Let's do it for delete. Okay, so for delete, yeah, I understand. So with our database implementation, it's a bit tricky and not the best way probably, but I will do workaround. So first we will try to get this entry. If there is an entry with this username, if entry is not nil. This code is very specific to our implementation, to our storage implementation, but anyway, it should work. So and if there is no, we will return this one. So what we did here basically, since in our database implementation right now we cannot get error when we delete. So usually how you should do it, you first make a call, and I mean you make a call to the function in a Go language, and you also get error. And ideally, if there is no so let's say in this case, and let's say like this. So if there is, we cannot delete for some reasons. For example, if this user doesn't exist, we get a we get an error, and by this error we can check if it's related to the database connection, or it's related to the fact that there is no user with this username. But since we don't have this implementation database, what we did, we just tried to get this entry from database. And if there is an entry, we try to delete it and return status code awk. If there is no entry, we return status not found. For in-memory database, it's more than okay, but for actual database, it's a bit tough. Yeah, it's a bit incorrect because you should make a couple of requests when you can like solve problem with one request. But this is also out of scope of this session. And we can do the same for all other methods. I will do it out of this video because it's already 1 hour, almost one hour. And let's summarize this video. What we did in this video. We had so first we check like how it works, how you can start, how you can run, and etc. Then we did a bit refactoring, extracted our routes from main.go to the another file. And we also did like some refactoring on database, which was not ideal. We will need to solve it. And we also added like another endpoint / post and fixed problem of returning okay when there is no entry. I think that's okay for this coding session. As I said, check description and also comments for shorter version. I will probably provide a tutorial, like very short version of everything we did here. Later on, probably not the first day. It will be soon, I guess, and hope. And that's why please stay connected, stay tuned. Thank you for watching if you watched up to this point. Please leave a comment if you watched up to this point. I want to know if you did it actually and who is this. And see you on another video. Bye bye.